So hello and welcome to our talk today with Shiva Nazarahari. We were supposed to talk to two activists from Iran today, also with Sara Afzali, but she excused herself because of a family emergency. She's back in Iran and she couldn't join us, but yeah, she sends regards. I will introduce Shiva first and then we will start with the questions. So Shiva Nazarahari is a feminist activist and human rights defender. She's the founder and executive director of Zagah. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. Yes. A feminist initiative that supports reproductive rights and justice and provides safe abortion services and counseling for those in need in Iran. Shiva is also a former political prisoner who has been arrested and imprisoned multiple times by Iranian security forces since she was 18. In Iran, she was one of the founding members of the Committee of Human Rights Reporters, which documented human rights violations in the country. She has been deeply engaged in women's movements in Iran, actively contributing to various campaigns and initiatives, advocating for gender justice and civil liberties. Since 2018, she has been living in exile in Slovenia. Due to her activism and the threat of a political prison sentence, she is unable to return to Iran. So welcome, Shiva, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So let's go a couple of years back, as we also spoke afar during an interview I did with you a couple of years ago. In 2022, Iran saw big protests that happened following the death of Jina Mahsa Amini. So I'm wondering, how do you see this last wave of big protests, as we also saw them around the world, in the context of the decades-long fight of Iranian women for their rights? And I'm particularly interested in how these protests, in your opinion, if so, were different from previous ones. You know, what was something specific about this civil unrest that happened? And how do you see the involvement also of the younger generation in this specific movement that emerged in 2022?
I think when we want to talk about the woman life freedom movement, we should consider this important issue that it didn't happen over the night. It happened because of the outrage of the women against the state violation and systematic discrimination over the decade, but it also had a root on long fight of women movement in Iran. If we go back in 1979, when the Islamic Revolution succeeded in Iran and the Islamists took the power, we can see the first protest happened after the Islamic Revolution. Just 1 month after the Islamic Revolution was about women, and they protested against the mandatory hijab. So hijab was the first thing that women emerged and started to protest against it being mandatory. Just 1 month after the Islamic Revolution, they announced that women cannot go to work like without hijab, and they used a specific word. Ayatollah Khomeini used this specific word that naked women cannot go to work. So of course women were not naked in that time, but they consider women without hijab as naked, and they consider them as people who are violating the Islamist rules and Sharia rules. So it started that day, just in the 8th of March, 1 month after the revolution, and thousands of women took to the street, started protesting against this mandatory hijab. It lasted about 5 days. but of course they were repressed by the government, and they couldn't continue it, but they could postpone the hijab being mandatory for 2 years. So after 2 years, hijab was mandated in Iran. But this resistance against mandatory hijab continued in different shape in Iran. So I think every woman in Iran was part of this resistance. All of us were part of this resistance in different way and in different shape and in daily struggle against the system. I remember when we were young and we wanted like to, how to say, defiance against this rule. We were using like different shape of hijab. We were make it like we were like using and wearing colorful thing, and sometimes took off our scarf and put it on our shoulder. This was different ways of the resistance that women use it, and in the last few years before the killing of Mahsa Amini, it became more and more, and you could see young generation and different women in the street without having shawl or a scarf, but still with manto and but always there were like morality police on the square, and they were harassing women, arresting them and violating their rights. Of course, there were always resistance from the women against against morality police, and there were also different incidents before the Mahsa was killed by police. This is very important. Just 2 months before this incident and killing of Mahsa Amini, 2 very important incidents happened in Iran, and this is important to know, I think, because it created so much anger among people. One was about one girl in the bus when she had argument with one of the another woman. She was like supporter of the government, and she asked this woman Sepide Rashnu to wear her hijab. She refused, and they started argument together. And somebody filmed it, and the film circulated on social media. At night, Sepide was arrested, and a few days later, she was on the TV, and they forced her for the confession against herself, and she had some the sign of injury on her face. This created so much anger among people, and I think just 1 month after Mahsa Amini was killed at the police station, and how to say, it made people took to the street. It started by women because they suffer a lot over the 4 decades from this systematic repression and systematic violation. And the Woman Life Freedom slogan created on the funeral of the Mahsa Amini. I think this is the difference between this protest and the other protests, because it was about women, and it was started by the women at the beginning, with their protest against this ongoing violation, ongoing discrimination. And of course, it had root on the ongoing resistance and the efforts of women's movement in Iran for the decades. But regarding the participation of a young generation, I think in other protests in Iran, before the Mahsa, before the Woman Life Freedom movement also, I think maybe 3 years before, There was another very big protest in Iran in 2019 when they killed around more than 300 in just 5 days, 300 of protesters. And before that, in 2016, we saw another protest, and 2009, when I was very involved with that, and I was arrested over that protest. In all of these protests, young generation participated and played significant, role. In mass uprising, also it was the same. They were very involved. If you see on the names of the people who were killed, the names of the protesters who were killed during this uprising, most of them were under like 25. And most of them who were arrested also were under like 30. So, but I think it was not this participation of the young generation was not different from other protests. In all the protests, young generation plays a very important role.
Perhaps, what are some of the most important changes this movement brought, in your opinion, to Iranian opposition, to Iranian civil society? What do you think are some of the things that you would say personally that definitely changed, the mentality of people, perhaps, or the strength of the protesters, of activists, on one side, but also, as you just mentioned, a lot of people were also killed. A lot of people were arrested and are still kept in jail. So I'm wondering, what are the good changes you see, and what is also the repression that perhaps, was enforced after this movement, as a response from the state?
Well, I think the most important changes is about mandatory hijab. It's not existing anymore, but something happened after this protest. I couldn't go back to Iran, of course. I'm living in exile, but I can see in social media, I'm talking with my friend and family, and those who go to Iran and back, they are saying that Iran is not the same like before regarding the hijab of women. So many of women now go to the street without having hijab that we were used to it. Of course, they are not free to wear whatever they want, but they don't use this scarf anymore, many women, and they try to wear in more, free way. I think this is the very significant changes, because the resistance and the fighting against mandatory hijab lasted for 4 decades, and after Mahsa Amini was killed, it changed something in the society, and women, didn't want to wear this hijab anymore. They were saying, we don't do it, and we take all the risk, we pay the price, but we are not going to wear hijab anymore. At whatever prices it's gonna take, we are ready to pay it, but enough is enough. But of course, this is also very important to mention. The mandatory hijab is still a rule in Iran. So every woman who goes to the street without having this hijab are taking a risk to be arrested, to be in prison. There were several women who get arrested because of how they went to the street. They got sentenced to prison. They got sentenced to lashes. So a few months after that, because they couldn't bring morality police and this van of police on the street again because they fear about, another wave of protest happen in Iran. But they started to fine people because of not having a job. And they use these city cameras to identify people, and they send this, fine to people. They took their car, and people had to pay the fine to, get back their car. So there were many. They continue harassing people in daily basis, but they were resistance in daily basis also. This is very important, and I think the mentality of the society toward hijab and also women's rights has changed. Has changed a lot because before that people always saying this is not very important issue, you can just wear it, we have more important thing to protest against it.
But it's a symbol.
Yes, but it was not simple because we were dealing with hijab in daily basis. It's limited women, it's from so many things. We are not against, this is also very important to mention, we are not against hijab, we are against mandatory hijab, because this was also the discussion among Muslim women, and they were like violated when they saw young generation and women in Iran or people in Iran are burning, the shawl or scarf in protest against mandatory hijab. But this is not about hijab. This is about the violation of our rights, about what we want to wear. This shouldn't be like mandatory, or any society have to had like dress code for women or anybody. This is about our bodily autonomy, and we wanted to take it back. So, but as you mentioned, there is always repression from the state. There were, I think, during the Jina uprising, more than 500 people and protesters were shot by security forces. There were thousands of protesters were arrested in Iran, imprisoned, got sentenced to long prison sentence. They were 11 protesters executed, and there are still some of them under the risk of being executed. There are 3 women political prisoners now are under the risk of being executed. They got sentenced to death, and they sentenced upheld 2 times, and we are very scared that the government wants really to execute them. I think there is a title of the next panel. This is exactly about Iran. Where there is a repression, there is always a resistance, and this is about Iranian society, and this is about women. They are always resisting against the state, and I think this is something very inspired. Always me, and this is something very special about that society, and special about that women. That despite all the discrimination, all the violation, and all the risk that they have to take, they still are fighting back and pushing back government in everyday life.
Perhaps we can talk a bit about how, political activism looks like in Iran, because of course you were one and you are still one, although now in exile. How do people like you, manage to do things they do. You were fighting for abortion rights in Iran, which I imagine is a very, also a very strong activism, something that is, probably also that much difficult in Iran. So how do activists work? How do NGOs perhaps work? How do you work in this constant also, possibility of being threatened, of being sent to jail as you were as well? How do people do it?
It's very difficult, of course. It's very difficult, but I can say the civil society in Iran also are familiar with the situation. They are familiar with the risk that they have to take. Over the years, they continue fighting against the government and against the state, despite the repression that always there. And despite the risk of being arrested and imprisonment, I think we just get used to the situation. Of course, and sometimes they can like slow the civil society down or silence them, but they never could erase them. There are always voices of civil society. There are always different group or initiative. Or NGO, let's say. Iranian civil society, especially inside the country, there are not so many NGOs because as an NGO, you should get the permission from the government. So most of the independent group cannot get permission from the government, especially the feminist group. So we are working like as an initiative, like as a small group who think like the same. We just make a group and start working, and because we don't have like street, we cannot, we don't have the public spaces to work as a civil society in the let's say last decades. Most of the work of civil society got online. They are using online platform to reach to the more audiences, but of course there's always the risk of being arrested. And this is also very important that we mentioned the massive wave of repression over the decades in Iran, to see how civil society resisted against this repression. Because after the Islamic Revolution happened in Iran, there were like mass execution of political prisoners or opposition. Thousands of opposition, thousands of political prisoners executed inside the prisons in Iran, across Iran. There is no accurate number still, but we know at least like 50,000 of opposition were executed in that time. So, after this mass execution and this mass repression, it's very hard for civil society and opposition group to stand again, yes, reorganize and stand again. So it took a while for civil society and the opposition and the group in Iran to find each other again, reorganize themselves, and start working together. And in every like protest when it happened in Iran, like let's say 2009 when I was involved, every protest when happened, there is a mass repression, of course. 100 get arrested, 100 get sentenced to long prison, So this makes civil society weak, because we lost the member of civil society. Hundreds of them, like in 2009, hundreds of us were in jail, hundreds of us had to leave Iran and living in the exile. And for example, in the Committee of Human Rights Reporter, that I was like one of the funder when I was arrested. We were like 8 or 9 people were working together. I was arrested first, and then other got arrested. And when I was released from the prison, there was no one, because most of them had to leave Iran. I was the only one who was left in the country, and it's, you have so much things to deal with, the depression, all the things you had go through, and then you need to reorganize, you need to find other people. This is what happened. After also the Gina uprising, I think it was the same, because again, there were so many in the prison, so many had to leave Iran. So every time it takes time to reorganize again and create new group and new initiatives. Yeah, that's very difficult to work in this kind of context.
Perhaps you mentioned that a lot of organizing is now done online. It's done via digital means and tools. Perhaps you can talk a bit more about that, about how Iranians use digital, space for also organizing and activism, but also with everything as we see, you get repression there as well. You get apps cancelled. I heard about VPNs getting, people not being able to use VPNs. Also, I read about this Nazar app, which was supposed to, give civilians the opportunity to film people without hijab and report them to the state. So, how does this all work together?
The online spaces affect civil society in different way. In one way, civil society can benefit from the online spaces. Most of the initiatives and groups are very active on social media. They are using social media to network, to organize, to get international attention and reach more audiences. Most of the feminist initiatives has pages on social media like Instagram, which is very popular in Iran, Twitter, and they are using this to raise awareness and also use the possibility to do the things like Zagah, as you mentioned. We are working to help those women who need to do abortion in Iran. And we're using online spaces. We are doing it through the social media. It's like women reach out to us through social media. They need help. They are saying like, I'm 9 weeks pregnant and I need to get abortion. We helping them to get access to the safe abortion pills, and we accompany them and help them through the process. And make sure that everything is going well and they are safe and like this. So social media and online spaces really help civil society because we cannot spaces like this in Iran. But also there is another side. Government also using online spaces and weaponizing online spaces through surveillance, censorship, and trying to use it and to recognize the activists identify activists and through, like as you mentioned, VPN, this different apps like Nazar app was an app. Puyesh is here and he can explain better. Nazar was an app after the Jina uprising because, they don't like give up. They started this Nazar app to encourage people to police each other and encourage people to report those who don't have hijab in public spaces through Nazar app. And there were also another law who wanted to also limit the women and fine women who don't have hijab. So it has two sides. But I think civil society also are adapting themselves regularly with this surveillance app, with the system that government is using against online spaces to limit work on the online space. They are adapting themselves by, I don't know, using safe VPN, using safe application. There are some groups which are advocating and informing other activists to use like this app is safer. Activists should use this app. This app, if is not safe, is better to not using it. But there are some times like during this last war, 12 days of war between Iran and Israel, when they shut down internet, when they shut down the internet, people don't access to anything inside Iran, and for us outside Iran, we don't also access to those who are inside it. We want to get news from our family. We want to, get connected. We are scared. We are worried, but there is no way to get connected with inside the country. There are some apps that they are like internal application that government forcing people to use it instead of like WhatsApp, like Signal, which are safe. Forcing people to use them, and they are saying if there are you have like family member who are living outside, they also can use this application. Even for me, I know that they are not safe, but I was like so desperate because I wanted to talk with my family during that day, and I was like about get a new phone and just download this application, internal application. I knew it was not safe. This is the way that they force people to use this unsafe application to broad this surveillance over people.
Because you just mentioned the recent events, perhaps we can talk a bit about that when Israel and the United States both attacked Iran. How do you see these events also, because as with a lot of foreign interventions, as with a lot of, US meddling, but also Israel, of course, we hear, excuses which are, of course, totally false, which are something like, Iranians need, we will bring democracy to the women of Iran and, such bullshit, to be honest. But how do you see this situation? And also how does this type of, also war event, because that was a 12-day war with a lot of war crimes done. Also, Evin prison, which where there's a lot of activists imprisoned, was bombed by Israel. What does this situation mean for Iran, but also for the opposition, for the civil society? Because I can imagine that of course we cannot believe these excuses of bringing democracy anywhere, but it actually does probably the opposite. It actually reinforces some repression on the side of the state on their citizens also?
Well, I think we all know that we all agree that it was unlawful attack on Iran because Iran was in the middle of the negotiation with the US over this nuclear stuff, but Israel attacked Iran and they were targeted like residential area. It was not just military targeted, they targeted residential area. Hundreds of people, just ordinary people were killed. So there is no doubt that there were no reason, for Israel to attack Iran. But of course, Israel doesn't want any reason. They are doing genocide in Gaza, and they don't listen to anybody in the world. Of course, the politician, the Western politician, and also U.S. failed to stop Israel. But regarding the what the impact of the war on Iranian society and also civil society. This is good to know that the Iranian opposition are very polarized, unfortunately. I am always embarrassed to say that some group of opposition, Iranian opposition, are supporting Israel. And they were also, during the 12 days of war, they were supporting Israel attack on Iran because of this, bullshit that they are bringing democracy to Iran, they are liberating women, and Netanyahu also used this and he like filmed himself and giving the message to Iranian society, especially women, that we are going to liberate you. And he used the Woman Life Freedom Movement slogan in his end of the speech. But as what I can say is the only, I think, positive thing about these 12 days of war was we could hear more the voices against war, against Israel, against war and against Israel and United States. Because before that, this is also another thing we should know, that the online spaces is very unsafe for activists who want to speak against the war, against Israel and against the United States. Is not safe, and because of the far-right Iranian opposition, that they are violating all those who dare to speak up against Israel. There is like a smear campaign, online attack, online violence that try to silence those who think differently. For me, even you, I don't know, you see or not, I'm not speaking about it because I know what will happen, There are not so many people who speak against Israel or against United States in Iranian social media, but during that 12 days, they were like, Iranian civil society, many groups, most of the civil society who were inside country, and some of them who are outside and who are living in diaspora could speak up against Israel. They were united against this war. There were different statements from feminist group, worker union, against Israel, against genocide that's happening in Gaza. Of course, they criticize also Islamic Republic about their, their role, but they were like took a position and show their opposition against the war. This was a good thing and positive thing happened, and during that time we could not hear so much from this far right opposition group, because they were trying to make people to believe Israel is coming to save them and liberate them. And unfortunately, there are some people, which are not few, that they believe. I always thinking maybe they are like desperate, they are tired from the government, they saw different protests over the years, they saw that they cannot do, much, they cannot change this regime. They tried so many times, they took to the street, like in 2009 there were, one day there were a protest in Tehran, 3 million people, 3 millions of people took to the street, but they couldn't like change the regime. So these are all I try to convince myself and to think maybe that's because of this, because people are like, we cannot do anything, let's, allow others to come to help us and save us. But fortunately, these are like far rights of opposition, those who support like monarchists. The last king of Iran, the son of the last king of Iran, they are supporters of him. But fortunately, civil society took very strong position against this narrative and showed that most of the Iranian society, those who are really and actually involved with the fight against the government and took the price and paid the price, are not supporting Israel. And as you mentioned also, in the last day of that 12 days, Israel bombed a Evin prison.
How do you explain that? I mean, how do you understand that? Because it would be, it would be naive to assume that Israel also doesn't know, about all the people in Evin prison. I mean, of course, anyone, but when we hear about Evin prison abroad, we hear about political prisoners mostly.
Actually, I don't know, really. I think nobody knows why Israel decided to bomb Evin prison. They said there were some military targets inside the prison, but as the Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch report and investigation and other investigations showed, there was not any military target inside the prison. There were just prisoners, the staff that were working there, like there were social workers. There were like 5 social workers who were killed in that attack. There were many prisoners, many medical staff who were working in the medical center of Evin, and families of the prisoners who will go to that the building to do the stuff for their prisoners. They also attacked the visitation hall. There were many families, and that day was like the visit day. They were there to visit their prisoners, and they bombed the visitation hall. So many families, so many prisoners were killed. And what happened after that? Because of course the prison was not in the situation to keep prisoners inside it. They decided to transfer all of them to other prisons.
Which can be dangerous as well, because people can disappear.
Yes, exactly. they decided to transfer them to other prison, like in the women were transferred, the women political prisoners, I mean, were transferred to another prison in south of Tehran, we called Qarchak prison, which the condition in that prison is very, very bad. And but because in the political prison, political ward for women, I was there like I don't know, like let's say 40 years ago. We, with the help of our family, we try to make it, make the condition better, keep everything like clean. So the condition in that prison, Qarchak prison, is very horrific. And those prisoners who were transferred to that prison, every day they are saying that this condition is not like for human. This is the impact of bombing. Evin prison and other men who were transferred to the prison, also to south of Tehran, they were complaining about the situation and the way that they were behaved by the security forces in that night, because Tehran was under-bombed and they were as a prisoners forced to transfer to other prison. They were like they act very violently. They attacked some of them, beaten up some of them. So this is what we still don't know. Israel, I don't know. Of course, you saw the first thing that they say. They said we bombed Evin as a symbol of repression. This was the first statement from the Israeli government as a symbol of repression. But then they said there was some military target. So I don't know. But we also heard that they got this advice from this monarchist group and far-right opposition of Iran to bomb Evin as a symbol of repression. Yeah.
You can never do anything good with bombing. Yeah. Of course. Perhaps this is the good point to open up the questions of the public and ask Shiva some questions. She's very active and has been for so many years, so I'm sure that you must be wondering about some of the things she mentioned or she worked on. Yes.
I wonder, you talked a lot about the women fighting the resistance. I'm wondering, what are the male population? Are they included or excluded? Perhaps you have, I don't know, brother, sister, father, friends. How are they involved in the resistance? Are they helping, or are they just looking from the distance? I don't know how it is to live there.
That's a good question, actually. This is the thing. I think before Jinnah uprising, we can say they were excluded. They didn't like. They were not. Some of them maybe, but in generally we cannot. Men in Iranian society were always helping women, or they were like accompanied them in their fight against the state violation. In the opposite, women were always criticized about their demands, and they were always heard that their demands are not prioritized, and there are, more important things to talk about. Their demands always denied from the men, and I was always thinking if, this half of the society, men also stood up and help women in their fight against the state. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we could do something, because there were, you know, over these 4 decades, especially from 2000 to 2009, women's movement was very strong in Iran. There were so many initiatives, there were so many campaigns. There was one campaign, a very famous campaign, 1 million signature to change the discriminatory laws. And most of the feminist group and most of the women activists were kind of involved with this campaign. We were like going to the street, talk to people, asking for their signature. And the aim of the campaign was collecting 1 million signature, taking it to the parliament and ask them to, you know, change the discriminatory laws against women. In that time, I remember that I was thinking, you know, men were not very welcome, because of course they are taking advantage of this, you know, this situation. This discrimination, they have privilege in Iranian society. And they are not, I think they are not how to say, they cannot take away these advantages. They cannot just forget it and help women to their fight for their equality. But after Jina uprising, I think this is also changed a little bit. We are seeing more men are involving with the or supporting women's rights, and they maybe after the Mahsa Jina Amini was killed, it also changed the mentality of men over the demands of women, but still is not like they are supporting women in every way. They are, I believe that because of their privilege and because of their advantages of this situation, they are not, always supporting women. I don't know if I could, yeah.
Another question? Yeah.
Thank you. I actually had the same question, but I'm going to go with another one. So Iran is really big, no? So I imagine that the protests are just concentrated in big cities, or they are spread all the country, or if there are cities or regions that are left behind and are not involved.
Sorry, I didn't understand your question. You are talking about...
all these protests are...
centralized.
The protests for hijab or...
there were so many cities were involved across Iran. I think, yes, big cities and also rural area, very small cities in south of Iran. So this was the protest that many cities and many people in different classes and different identity were involved with. Maybe most of them or some of them were not involved or didn't, join the protest because of women's rights, because in that time and also now, after 10 years of sanction, most of the people in Iran are suffering from the results of this sanction, the economic crisis and everything. So people joined the protest against the Jina uprising, and again, from different classes and different aspects, and it happened in small cities, rural area, big cities. So many cities were involved.
Thank you.
Jina came from a very small city.
Yeah, Jina also came from Kurdistan region in Iran, so marginalized, community.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about, there's this kind of like phenomenon on the anti-imperialist left today where Iranian regime is somehow fetishized or romanticized because it's so instrumental in supporting various resistance movements in Palestine, in Yemen, and in Lebanon. What do we make of that?
Sorry,
As in like I guess certain people would say that we need to express unconditional support on the left for the Iranian regime because Iranian regime supports resistance movements in Palestine, Lebanon, and Yemen.
Yeah, I also got this, for example, sometimes when you talk here about the plight of women's rights in Iran, some people from the left will say this is, American propaganda, because they're some just want to stick to one side always.
Yeah, I understand. Actually, I think this is the problem that we have with leftist people here, not here in Slovenia, but as a general. Because they always think if the Islamic Republic stand against United States, that they are good and we should support them. But I think they don't know about the context. We also, as those who are opposite Israel and U.S., sometimes get this how to say. Get accused, of supporting Islamic Republic. Even me, as someone who were in jail and always fighting against Islamic Republic. But I think it's very important for leftist people here to understand the long fight of women in Iran against the state, because this is an oppressor state in Iran. They are violating women's rights, they are violating marginalized community, they are violating civil rights every day. They are oppressing their own people every day. They make life very hard for their own people. And because they are standing against United States and against Israel, it's not the reason to support them. We should realize this. This is very important. This is also very important for Iranian people because they always, they always expect from the West, especially those who call themselves as a leftist people, to understand the situation and understand the context, and don't, support this narrative and see Islamic Republic, that side of Islamic Republic standing against America, and just turn their blind eyes on what is happening to people in Iran. So I think that's the thing.
In the back.
What do you think should be the role of the international community, the European Union, in supporting the struggles of civil society in Iran? We have witnessed sanctions in the past decade that haven't changed much. They have actually hurt civil society. So can our government do anything? Is there any role that can play?
This is always very complicated question for me to answer, because if it was before, I would say yes, let's we need them, we expect them to amplify our voices, to hear our voices, support our fight, blah 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 blah. But now, as we we are seeing their role and we are seeing what they are doing about, what is happening in Palestine and in Gaza, I really doubt about their, what they claimed as a human rights supporter, women's rights supporter. I don't believe them anymore, because they always saying that they are supporting women's rights in Iran, they are supporting, human rights in Iran, they condemn Iran always because of the violation of human rights, which is very good, thanks them. But at the same time, we see that they put the sanction on Iranian society, which we all know that those who most impacted by the sanction are ordinary people, and people in Iran in the last 10 years really suffered from the sanction, and civil society, especially civil society, suffered and impacted by the sanction. They made Iranian civil society very weak, because I always tell it, in Iran, being an activist is not our job, because we are not get funded by the government. We are risking our life, we cannot get money from anywhere. We are always accused of having, being connected with the Western Institute or Western, funder, and get fund against the regime, but that's not true, and it's not our job. So we have another job, and we should have, time and energy to spend in the activism way. When you are suffering from the economical crisis, you have to work in 2 jobs, and you don't have enough energy and enough time to do the activism. This sanction really has weakened the civil society in Iran. So how I can rely on their claim about the human rights and women's rights when at the same time they are weakening civil society, feminist movement, women's movement in Iran? The things I can say, maybe, I don't know, I'm not expecting them, I'm always talking with the organization, the feminist movement, institute who are working here, activists, they are important. We expect them to hear us, amplify our voices, support us, and understand the context of Iran. So I really prefer to speak with the movement, with the civil movement in the West, not with politicians.
Thank you. Once you got out of Iran, how difficult or not difficult was it to re-establish your activist networks? And more generally, what is the role of the diaspora in the Iranian civil society?
Well, it was difficult. I think we met each other in the very beginning. When I was here, I don't know, it was the first year or second year, but it took a time, it took times, maybe, I don't know when I was able to reestablish something here. Maybe it took about 3 years to, you need to adapt yourself with the with this new life, and when you are not inside the country, you feel that you are not involved anymore, you miss many things, even though you know that you are safe, but it doesn't give a good feeling, you know, always. It's very sad, but it took like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years that I was able to establish something here. I started with, I founded one, I say like, women audio library, which we were together, started to reading like feminist books and trying to make it as audiobook and publish on our Telegram channel as for free. So it was the way that we slowly started to do something, and then I think 1 year later I founded Zaga, this platform which became very important in Iran, because now women are getting to know this platform for having access to safe abortion. And we have so many cases. We supported like hundreds of women during this last 2 or 3 years to have safe abortions. And also after when Gina was killed in Iran, and it was a few days after the protests started, me with some of my friends, we started one group committee to follow up the status of the detainees. We were able to document more than 5,000 individual names who were arrested that time, and you know, we were able to publish so many reports about the violation of human rights during the protests, the condition of the prison across Iran, and these reports and documentation were used by, you know, international organization and also fact-finding mission. Yeah, it was very hard and difficult, but and it's still hard because you always feel that, you know, separation and distance between yourself and what is going on inside the country. But I am always thinking this is the things that we can do it here. Even when I think maybe if I was in Iran, I would be in jail now, and I couldn't do like Zaga platform, and this is working very well, but sometimes, you know, it's not enough, and you still feel sad about not being able to be inside and be involved in the movement inside the country. About the Iranian diaspora and activism in Iranian diaspora, it is also very polarized. We can say there are different groups and people who are working on the activism in Iranian diaspora. Some of them are independent, some of them are relying on the some budget from different funder. Very complicated, I cannot go to the details, but I think there are some groups in the diaspora which are working very good, especially after the Women Life Freedom movement, because so many young generation of activists started to work. Before that, they were most involved with academic work. They were studying in the university. But after Jina uprising, they started to do something, and we can see the new generation of activists, feminist activists, who are who thinking in very they are very bright. And I always admire them, but there is also a dark side, in diaspora. So,
anyone else? In the back.
basically the question is quite simple. How can we directly support your work?
My work?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I remember when I started the committee to follow up the status of the detainees. It was after during that protest. Of course, everybody wanted to do something, and we got some, offer like how they can help us inside the Slovenia. Even they wanted to fund and give like a small budget to us, but I refused, and because I always like work in volunteer basis, I never go for fund, because I think, going for something like this can make complication, for the work. But I don't know, we should talk more and see the possibilities. I'm always welcome, and I'm always welcome to be more involved with the activism inside the Slovenia, because as an activist, over the last 7 years, I couldn't see myself, part of the movement and what is happening here. Although I tried to make connection. Maybe I was also very busy, but I'm always welcome to get connected with the people who are working here. Maybe we can exchange our experience and use the possibilities if there is any here.
Perhaps the last question from me, and then we can wrap up and do a bit more informal chatting as well. What is a source of media, or an independent media or website or social media site that you feel is good for us to follow, to keep up with what's going on in Iran, with the civil society? Is there something you would recommend for people to follow or read?
Hard question. What do you suggest? Yeah, I think I always prefer, and I also suggest to follow the civil society group, their website, and and through them get the news and get the view of what is happening in Iran. So there are some organizations who are working very well. They are not group or initiative, they are basically organization. I can give you the link, like Femina. I'm working with them. I'm not saying because I'm working with them. Femina is really good organization. And our work is not just about Iran, it's about the region, Suana region. So it gives a view about what is happening in the region, because there are Syrian colleagues, there are Lebanese colleagues, Afghan colleagues who are really monitoring the situation in their country and giving very good and powerful report. And also another group who is working on digital rights in Iran, Mian group. And other small initiative, Harass Watch is a very good feminist initiative, working like for a decade in Iran. Most of them, like these initiatives, are working in Farsi, but the two organizations you can find content in English. So
thank you so much, and thank you for taking us through everything in the past hour and a half, and thank you for your work also.
Thank you for having me. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you.